We love you!
Hello and welcome to Tribe Talk, the Galway Hurling podcast, with me, Patrick Earley and David Connors, where each week we'll discuss and divulge all the goings-on in Galway Hurling. We'll be taking an in-depth look at the club scene and of course focusing on inter-county, in this, Shane O'Neill's first year at the helm, all of which we'll do in the company of some special guests and former Galway greats. So do come along and join us on Tribe Talk, Galway's dedicated hurling podcast.
Well, it's been 6 months since we saw the Galway senior hurlers in action, but finally the week is here. It's game week. It's the first round of the 2020 All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. Galway and Wexford meeting in the Leinster semi-final on Saturday evening in Croke Park. So we've a lot to look forward to. Myself and David here again, as always, and joined this week by Franny Forde. Great to have you on board, Franny.
No bother, lads. Good to be here.
Very different for you this week, Franny, watching the Galway seniors from the couch. How are you feeling about it?
Sure, looking forward to the game. Yeah, it's definitely a different feel. It's different feel in so many ways. Just looking at the games last weekend, no atmosphere really. Felt like league matches, felt like challenge matches watching them. But I suppose things will kick into gear a little bit better next week. So plenty to look forward to, as you say. I just hope that it, resembles more of championship fare than maybe last weekend. But from my point of view, yeah, different to be looking at the lads and looking at the squad and wondering how they'll perform and not being involved in the thick of it. But we'll enjoy sitting back and watching it anyway for the week ahead.
From a logistics point of view, obviously you were there for the last 4 or 5 years. What the management had to kind of, I suppose, deal with and manage in the off time and trying to keep tabs on where lads were at. Probably would have been a bit of a nightmare, fair to say.
Yeah, I'd say these days that has to be really tough because, even going back over the last number of years, so much time would go into getting absolutely everything right down to the minute in terms of your travel and having your meal exactly, 3 hours before the game at whatever venue or wherever you want to travel to for your meal beforehand. And all of that stuff now is so much more difficult. I mean, you can't go to a hotel. How do you organise all that stuff? So certainly that's an element of it that I'm not sorry that I'm not in the thick of this week, let's just say, because it is very difficult. And I know these are very small things, but it's 1,000, it's 100,000 small tiny things that make all the difference at this level. And you're just trying to get a team out in the pitch in the best shape possible, in a position to perform. And all of these things, even team talk, stuff like that, like dressing rooms, access to them, no team huddles, all of that stuff makes it an awful lot more difficult at this level.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose, we're looking ahead to the game Saturday, but in many ways we don't really know what we're talking about or what we're looking forward to from a Galway point of view.
Some would say we never know what we're talking about, Patrick. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Well, at least now, if we get things wrong, we don't have a lot to go on, so we can use that as our excuse anyhow. But
true enough.
It's certainly, I suppose, the championship that you're going into with. I suppose it's the most level of uncertainty, I suppose, as regards every team. Really, it's fair to say, but certainly for ourselves here in Galway, even if you're going in with the same management team and that as you had previous years, you'd have had more of a sort of an idea of what to expect. But it's totally new for everyone, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And, I think even looking back at last weekend, the vibes kind of from Limerick had been good. Whereas you knew going in that Clare were down, they were down Peter Duggan, down John Conlon, Colin Galvin. You take those three lads out of any team in the country and, they would seriously weaken any county team. Now there's a lot of unknowns, even in terms of Galway. Like, they're training away, you're not hearing much about it. We don't know who's fit, who's not fit for the weekend. We probably have an idea about one or two lads, but a new management. We've seen some league games, but it's a long time ago, and it's very hard to gauge any type of form, either individual form or a collective form, obviously. So heading into the unknown. But the only thing I'd say about Galway in particular is we're heading into it with a very experienced team, and we're still going to have a spine that's very experienced, and that alone will give me great confidence in the lads that they've been here, they've done it before, and they know what's required.
Absolutely, yeah. And David, you came up with an interesting stat for me there just before we came on about the weekend gone by, and I suppose a lot of teams, when you consider winter hurling, you think it'll be a bit tougher in the scoring stakes, might have more low scoring, dogged sort of games, but it was on the contrary at the weekend with the scores. Limerick and Dublin in particular were racking up, and two stats that you produced was the totals of 116 for Donald Burke and 17 points for Tony Kelly equaled the most number of scores ever from individuals in matches, with Eddie Kerr having set the previous record, which I suppose, I don't know, is what we saw at the weekend. Probably not the greatest thing in the world, but do you think we have more of that to look forward to, David?
I don't know. It's very difficult to know, Patrick. As Franny said there a few seconds ago, they seem very challenge match the two fixtures of the weekend. I suppose there's probably a bit of golfing class between the two teams. I think Laois were down. I think they'd only 8 from the team that bet Dublin last year. Dublin had a few back as well between Donald Burke and Conor Burke. And then, as you mentioned as well, Franny, but Clare were just down some serious players that which are probably among maybe 3 of the top 5 players probably they have in their ranks alone. And Limerick are just, they seem they're just at another level really physically at the moment as well. I know they might be missing Richie English and Mike Casey, but they just the ability to tip over points. You know what I mean? Obviously, 36 points. I think it's the second highest ever as well. After Cork. Cork against Westmeath. I think so. It's very interesting. I think next weekend will probably. I think we touched on it before we came on here. I think next weekend between those 4 games will probably give us a lot clearer barometer of what we're at, or where we're at, should I say? But sure, as we mentioned, they're playing on the best pitches in the country, and I don't think the weather's going to have a huge bearing. Croke Park is reasonably well covered. At times, you have 3/4 of it covered, or 3/4 of it covered anyway. And I suppose the only thing, just in terms of player selection and stuff, we touched on which lads are fit and which lads aren't, but I suppose you won't know till maybe even the day before whether a lad could easily come down with as a close contact or confirmed case. We just don't really know how they're how it's going to play out. I think what was it Offaly last week, they got under a bit of they probably a bit unlucky not to have everyone available for them in a sense, so just
very unlucky.
It just seems to be you don't know what way the rules are playing out. It's kind of you're at the beck and call, we'll say, of whoever's deciding on your kind of cases at the time. So that's another one. So you could get to a Saturday, your game could be on Sunday, and next thing you could be down 2 or 3 lads. I think that's something we kind of have to make ourselves aware of this year. Is in teams are going. There's a likelihood that they're going to miss some key players at key points. And I suppose we're just going to have to get on with it. And there's nothing to say that teams mightn't be able to fulfill fixtures either. This is another thing, because we're working on such a limited time frame as well. You'd hope it wouldn't be the case, but I think it's something that we all kind of need to be prepared ourselves for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to the Offaly one, very strange that, and it seems like it depended maybe who you were talking to in the HSE, because the fact that all of the panel were deemed close contacts, I thought that very strange. And then Westmeath were going up to Antrim at the weekend, and Antrim they'd had a positive case, if not a couple of positive cases. They had one of their starters couldn't play, and maybe 4 or 5 other lads from the squad couldn't play, but yet the rest of them were all fine to play, and then subsequently went out and hammered Westmeath. So there's a lot of things to factor in, and you would just hope that these lads, these county lads, they really do live in a bubble, and they'll be looking after themselves so well. You just hope that wouldn't affect any of the big games as the year goes on, because that would be a bit of a disaster.
For sure.
Yeah, because the reality is, though, we talk about, I suppose, championship structures the last couple of years with the round robin. You talked about the importance of your panel and the likelihood you're going to pick up injuries week in, week out, and you're playing every week as it was in the group stages, So the importance of your panel there. But now you have the added issue of possibly losing a lad to a case, and then 5-6 more lads, whatever it may be, to as close contacts, So the panel could be critical this year. And probably looking at the Galway panel, I know we'll release the full list there tomorrow or the day after, so people can have a look at it before the weekend. But Galway are probably quite well stocked in that regard, Franny, it's fair to say.
Yeah, I would say so. And the pity, I suppose, from Shane's point of view, the pity is that we have a good few lads there who showed up really well in club championship, and if you could have got maybe 2 league games into them just to see how they'd perform at this level, because going well at club is one thing, but you just need to have something in the bank at county level to be thrown into championship, and the opportunity that a league game or 2 league games, like the footballers now, the opportunity that would have presented to maybe try a fella, that's just a pity, from a management point of view, that opportunity wasn't there. But yeah, look, lots of good hurlers, lots of lads showed up well in the championship. I'm sure there's great competition in there at the moment, and especially maybe with the fresh management, that you don't know how they're going to approach it, or what their view is on it and how they want to play the game. So we saw little snippets of that maybe in the league, but that's, as I said, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we look at the likes of, I suppose, the Jam Mannion, Sean Linnans, Kevin Hussey, 2 lads from your own club there, Franny, Jamie Ryan and Loughrea. These are lads that they're on the panel now, but and in fairness, Ja and Sean, they were exposed to a bit of plenty of league action in the spring and that, but still, you look at those lads and you think probably 2021 is the year where you hope the likes of those lads are really going to step up and make an impact, because this year, in fairness to O'Neill, it's probably been tested in a lot of positions.
Yeah, that's as I said, the pity that you just don't get that opportunity. I thought another fella there, Kevin Cooney, I thought had a great championship. Jamie Ryan had a great championship, and it would have been maybe an ideal opportunity. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future in terms of what the structure is going to be between club and county. But when you see it that way, you just wonder which should go first, because certainly having the club leading into a county championship or an inter-county championship afterwards could be great from that point of view. And I know that there'll be arguments vice versa as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose looking as a manager in your first year in charge, I know it's only his first year as an inter-county manager, full stop. There's always pressure when you go, but I think people this year, you get a kind of dose of reality and things outside of hurling that are an awful lot more important, and it kind of puts the game into perspective in many ways. But it's probably, there's a bit of pressure off in many ways, both for players and the management, just to kind of go out and have a cut of this championship, and whatever comes out of it, I think whatever way it goes, I think you'll be happy to reset in 2021 and go again. And that's kind of the year really where you're looking at lads wanting to kind of kick on, and but at the same time, there's so many years you have as an inter-county hurler too, and this year is as good a chance as any. Try to get that second All-Ireland medal in the back pocket.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because even with the club championship, I think the way we approached it, and I think the way a lot of teams approached it, was nearly a bonus to have a club championship. So it was, the attitude was, let's just have a cut at it, and if you got there, if you were successful, if you made progress, great. And if you didn't, you just say, well, it was a short window, maybe things didn't go our way or whatever, and you get ready for the following year. And I think the inter-county is somewhat similar, in that, of course, it's there. It's another All-Ireland that's there to win. So have a cut at it. As you said, there's bigger things going on at the minute, and if it doesn't work out for you, you just get ready to go again next year and have a good cut at it. And I think, from Shane O'Neill's point of view, that's probably the attitude to take with it as well. It's another Ireland that's there to be won, and we've a really good team. We've a lot of experienced players, so let's have a proper cut at it. And the other thing I'd add to that maybe is that at inter-county level in particular, that window, your window for success with the team, it's limited enough. I mean, you look at Limerick now, and they're flying it, but they're in year 3, having won the All-Ireland. Is there a little bit of pressure on now to deliver number 2 at this stage? From they've been so good in so many of their games, and yet came up a little bit short last year when it came to the crunch against Kilkenny. So that window, mark my words, it's a very small window to try and be successful, and you've got to take your opportunity when it's there.
I suppose one thing just on that, I suppose from a Galway standpoint, I nearly think they're kind of coming in a small bit under the radar this time. After what you, Franny, you know what I mean. Year few years that are there, like say, after 2017, you were probably the most talked about team in the country for the 2 years that followed. Whereas now it's kind of, there's a lot of, I think I was even listening to Anthony Daly's podcast there, he does have a few lads on it, but I think it was only one out of the 4 or 5 lads that tipped Galway even for Leinster, and most of them didn't see them even beating Wexford at the weekend. So, like, if just looking at Wexford and Galway's teams, like looking at it on paper, I don't see any reason why Galway couldn't win it. Like, Jesus, I'd imagine pound for pound we'd have a better team, and probably squad as well. Truth be told, it's kind of if something, I don't know what it is, but maybe they're coming in a small bit underrated, and I don't really see why. Like, it's like you mentioned that these lads are vastly experienced. Like, we've lads there that played in back-to-back All-Ireland finals. Like, geez, they didn't put a foot out of place for maybe 3 years on the bounce. Like, last year was a bit disappointing, but they're still, you don't become a bad team overnight, as we'll say. Like, they're just a small bit of, just need maybe just a tiny little bit of injection of youth, maybe like this year now, to maybe put a bit of freshness in the squad. And I think the break as well will have done a lot of the lads good. Like, we've seen some of the inter-county lads, the lads in your panel this year with Turlock, Franny, and the few lads with Thomas is there, Connor Cooney, and a few more of these lads. They were hurling out of their skin this year, and the two Manions and a Hasker as well. It seemed like they'd a new lease of life, and I'd imagine they'd be chomping at the bit to get back out and maybe try and right the wrongs of last year. Now, whether it's enough to mean to go all the way, but I see no reason why they couldn't have a serious quote at Leinster at the very least. Whereas a lot of people are kind of saying, Jesus, Wexford probably could do them the next day, and then you're facing maybe you could easily be facing a Limerick or a Tip there, depending on the look of the draw, and then you just don't know where you stand. But no, I think they're well capable of beating Wexford the next day. Anyway, that's just kind of my and I think they're coming in a good position.
I'd agree with you. I think Galway, in terms of national media, are kind of the forgotten team, if you like, and I think that tends to happen. Like, we've seen that you get forgotten very quickly, and the All Ireland at the end of the day was between Tip and Kilkenny, and Limerick had a very good year, but people forget Limerick lost 3 times last year, which is incredible. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of where Galway are coming from. They're definitely under the radar. I would say when it comes to the pundits the weekend, it'll probably be very much nationally a kind of a 50-50 game, and that's fair enough, because when you play Kilkenny, it's not just about the individuals or the 15 that you put out. Like Davy, in fairness to him, Davy will always present you with a serious challenge, and it, like, on the sideline, it's a tough day at the office, because he looks for different ways to challenge you, and like we always felt that if we were ready kind of for the game plan, and this is where Galway are at a little bit of a disadvantage, where, okay, I said earlier that we didn't have maybe 2 league games, which would have been ideal to get lads into the team and see what lads can do, but Davy has had a little bit more time with his lads than our management have had over the last few weeks. He will come with a plan that will be well rehearsed, and that can become a real challenge. It's fine when you've seen them do it in maybe 2 or 3 games before that, but when you haven't had that opportunity, it's very difficult, and he may well throw something new at us, which I would be confident that we'd have the lads on the field and on the sideline to cope with it. But it can level the game, and it can give them a little bit of an advantage if it works for them. And we saw, like, even last year, like, we were disappointed with our performance, and we were disappointed that we didn't take more of our chances in the first half against Wexford last year. But the scoreline at the end of that game was 16 points each. Now, you compare that with what we saw last weekend. You can be sure that Wexford will go, and it's part of the reason why they play the sweeper, so that each of the other defenders can go man on man and absolutely so into our forwards, knowing that they have that cover. And like, same if you take someone like Matthew O'Hanlon in the half back line, he knows he can go on the attack. Paddy Foley, they know they can go on the attack and really challenge our half forwards because they have that cover behind. So, his game plans, you have to give him enormous credit. His game plans are very good, and they are designed to, as much as they're designed to get the best out of his team, they are really designed to upset the opposition and knock you out of your stride.
Yeah, and is it fair to say as well that it's something that if you can deal with and you can count, I suppose, in, let's say, the first half or thereabout, and you and they struggle to implement that game plan on you, that it will, as a result, is there a plan B there? And if you get into their heads and they're struggling, their sweeper isn't at that level of dominance, their halfbacks aren't getting forward as they would like, does that kind of, as an opposition management team, does that kind of stump you a bit, and even your players as well, in that it's been instilled in you so much that this plan works, and we've seen it work. But when it gets to the day where it doesn't work, that's we'll say for a Galway point of view, if you instill that in the Wexford heads, it's worth an awful lot to you on the other hand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and I know it seems like a long time ago now, but 2017, in fairness to Davy, like it was their first year as well, and we'd had a good read on it. Obviously, we had played them in the league, and we had fallen to them in the league, so we knew a fair bit about them. But we did feel that if we could get on top of them early, that it negated an awful lot of what they wanted to do, that they had to come at us a little bit more if they were chasing the game. But in fairness to him then as well, he's evolved it over the last couple of years. So, like, it was very noticeable last year. So, number one for me over the last 2 years, he has probably got a fella who's more suited or who plays the sweeper role better in Kevin Foley.
Yeah.
He's able to mix it up better in terms of attack and defence. And he offers something coming out of the half-back line that maybe Sean Murphy wasn't doing as well. Now, Sean Murphy is still doing a good job maybe at wing-back. So the attack and half-backs, we weren't seeing as much of that in 2017, so he's developed that a small bit more. And then last year, I thought the change he introduced was that in the last 20 minutes, so a lot of his game plan last year was designed to just keep you in the game for as long as possible. And then with 20 minutes to go, you'd bring on maybe David Dunn or one of these lads, and Rory O'Connor would drop out a bit deeper. And for that last 20 minutes, they would just run everything. Right, so they did that to huge effect in the Leinster final against Kilkenny. Kilkenny were in a winning position, which normally Kilkenny don't surrender. But these boys got running at them. I think it was Rory O'Connor got a goal that day, and there was no stopping them from there. So they just came in waves in the last 20. So I think part that there'll be a bit of uncertainty. He'll try and just curb Galway's game plan early doors and stay in the game, and then hope to really get going at us in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, and is that another big advantage of them having the extra time? They're with you kind of since the end of August is when their club championship finished. When you play a system like that, I know they're well dressed at it, well versed at this stage, but still having the extra 4 weeks, even more since than Galway would have had when you're playing at such a clear and structured style like that. That extra time is worth an awful lot to them. Yeah,
I would agree. And the other thing about them, not so much last year now, to be fair, because like last year they were still going strong in the All-Ireland semi-final, and probably should have beaten Tip if truth be told. They had the advantage to go and win it. But in the previous 2 years, there's no doubt as the year went on, they began to flag a little bit. They got tired because it's a very taxing game plan. Like it takes a lot out of them, the amount of running that they do with the ball and so on. That takes an awful lot, like over a long season. That takes a lot out of them. So now they're going to come in very fresh. I can imagine, like, they probably had the time nearly to do a full kind of pre-season when the club championship was over.
Yeah.
So they had a lot more time to tick more boxes than our lads had, to be fair. And I think they'll come very fresh. But, there's a counter-argument then as well when it comes to Wexford. Wexford really thrive on the crowd and the atmosphere. And Davy himself does. Like, he gives it to the crowd, but he gets it back in terms of that atmosphere that they're able to create. Now, 2018 in particular, when we went down to Wexford Park, there was two things about that game. Number one, when we went out, we could not believe the crowd from Galway that were down there that day. It was just unbelievable. It felt like we outnumbered them down in Wexford. So that was number one. And number two, it was a game where we really hit the ground running. And I spoke to you earlier about, having the homework done maybe on their game plan, and if you kind of knew what they were going to throw at you, you could be ready for it. So that day, we were ready maybe to play them a little bit more at their own game. So we had kind of decided that we would need to run the ball a little bit more because of the sweeper. And then because we had a sweeper ourselves, we allowed our halfbacks to go a little bit more than they normally would. So if you remember early doors that day, Pádraig Mannion, I think Conor Whelan finished it in the end. Pádraig Mannion should have had a goal where he found himself up the edge of the square. But we started really well that day, and then that completely silenced them. And the game was, I won't say it was over at half time, but we had a lot of the work done by half time.
Yeah. Just on Wexford a second then, Franny, I suppose on-field communication is so important, from a Galway standpoint at the weekend. You know what I mean? The way Wexford play, in terms of like you've the likes of say Simon Dunne who could drift off up, and next thing you could see him and he could be in the corner forward position out of nowhere, or you have D O'Keefe there who's just roaming. You could literally you could find him anywhere. Next thing he's in 20 yards of space. I suppose without the crowd being present, maybe Galway probably, and they've so many leaders as well out there that they'd probably be able to hear each other a small bit more and be able to communicate the message on the field, which I think could be beneficial. Would that be something you would go along the lines of as well?
I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think, and I've spent a lot of time talking about Wexford there, and they do bring an awful lot. But to be honest with you, I'd be super confident of our lads for the weekend because, as I said to you earlier, they do have that experience. We have good leaders on the field, and I think they've played Wexford. Like most of, I don't know what the team is going to be, but I'd imagine most of them will be lads who have played Wexford a number of times and will be prepared for the possibilities in terms of what Wexford throw at us. But for example, whoever our wing forwards are, I think they'll be well tuned into the potential of the attacking half backs, and the communication there is usually pretty good between our certainly our more experienced lads. And as I said, I'd expect to have plenty of them out there. So I think that will be a positive. And also our lads, I think that in fairness to them, they've been very kind of process driven in terms of they don't rely hugely on the crowd being up or down. They tend to just play their game and stick to it. And I think the fact that there's no crowd, I don't think it'll affect us too much. I think it might be a little bit of a drawback for Wexford because they're more heart on the sleeve kind of stuff, and rely on that massive motivation and Davy Fitz. I recall down in Wexford Park, it must have been that same game in 2018, and you'd go out the tunnel there for a puck around beforehand, and an hour before the game you could hear Davy roaring in the dressing room, so he really does get under these lads to give it absolutely everything. So it's going to be a little bit strange. I don't think we'll need the Sky surround sound or the background sound this weekend. There'll be plenty of noise on the sideline anyway.
I wonder will the RT have to, I don't know, hire some sort of a bleep man or somebody that's going to be on tabs throughout the whole game just in case he is that audible. I don't know, but from a Galway perspective, obviously we know you're permitted to go back inter-county training on the 14th September, but from Shane Reid's point of view, he only actually had everyone together at the start of October once the county final was over. So what do you think you can do as a management team to maximise that time together in what's only been, I suppose, just over 3 weeks now, really leading into a championship game?
Yeah, well, look at that. Shane will still have wanted to put his stamp on it, and I'm sure he was well, along in that process in March or whenever it was. Maybe not having shown his full hand in terms of the league games, but I'm sure at that stage lads had a fair idea what was required of them. And then, as you get closer to these games, I'm sure there'll be a huge emphasis on puck outs, and that's become such a big part of the game. Like when any game now, if you take the games the weekend, the number of chances and shots being taken, like when they're up in the 40s and 50s, that means you're pucking out the ball up on 50 times. That's a massive, massive part of the game. So, look, we're here now. We don't know who's going to be in goals, but that would be a big part of it. Also, the fact that you're going out to Croke Park, that's a big change from any of the league games because games take on a life of their own up there anyway. But it's the place everyone plays. You're guaranteed a perfect surface, where the fact that we're heading well into winter at this stage won't make as much of a difference. I thought if you take Thurles is still it's still more of a winter pitch. It'll play a little bit slower in winter. I'd say Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Croke Park, it won't make as much difference to them. So even looking at the pitch in Thurles, while it looked perfect, it's still going to hurl more like a winter pitch more so than Croke Park.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose with that, we'll take a look at the Galway's last competitive team, the Shane O'Neill name, which was back against Tip in the league, obviously. So we know there's going to be some changes from that 15. But I suppose we'll go through it kind of line by line, see what we think as regards maybe the injection of a bit of new blood in some places, and I suppose the return of some experienced lads in other places. But the team that played that day against Tip was James Skehill in goals. Full back line, Darren Marcy, Garage McInerney and Paul Killeen. Half back line, Aidan Hart, Shane Cooney and Fintan Burke. Midfield, Johnny Cohen and Pádraig Mannion. Half forward lines, Cathal Mannion and full forward line, Jason Flynn, Connor Cooney, Brian Cannon. So, you're going to have a lot of that team is going to be going out there the next day. You had lads not featuring that day, obviously. You know Joe that day, Adrian Toohey came on, David Burke came on, Niall Burke came on, lads like that, Sean Loft as well, who could well be involved in Sunday. So, the core of that team is probably going to start again the next day, but there are a few spots that, probably up for grabs, and probably goalie is kind of the one that's been talked about really once we found out that Colm Callum was retiring for good. The calls were there for Éanna Murphy to come into the panel, and he's in there now, and himself and Skehill both got plenty of game time, to be fair, during the league. But it's kind of when it comes down to it, down in Wexford in 2018, James Skehill was in goals for that day, Franny, and his puck outs were a huge factor that day, especially I remember when Johnny Glynn was in full forward, now he's not going to be hitting the 21 in Croke Park by any means, but still, it's something that you're going to be factoring in. As you say, puck outs are that important. He does give you an advantage if you're looking to play the long ball game. Yeah,
and it's for any keeper, it's just a great thing to have in the locker that you can just hit a target that's that far away from your goal. But Éanna has done really well. Éanna has done really well as well. Éanna's a super up and coming keeper, and I suppose the question really for management will be, do you go with the young, inexperienced goalkeeper, or do you go with the seasoned campaigner? It's as simple as that. We could only speculate here on that, but certainly Éanna, I'd imagine maybe they were conscious of Éanna needing maybe more game time in the league than James would have needed in terms of the experience side of things. So that makes it very hard to read what way they're thinking in that regard. But look, from my point of view, looking at that's not a bad place to be. They're two top class keepers. Anything I've seen of Éanna and had him at the under 21s, he's a great young fella. And as keepers go, he's probably quite young, to be honest. Because keepers tend to get better and better with age. So from that point of view, he's quite young and has many years ahead of him. But at the same time, I would have full confidence. In fact, I'd have full confidence whatever we go with there in terms of the goalkeeper on Sunday. And I suppose the other thing from a goalkeeper's point of view is, based on what we've seen over the last 3 years, it's very likely that you'll have a full backline plus sweeper in front of you. Probably two in front of you plus a sweeper going on Wexford's normal game, or sometimes it's only one up there. What I would argue there is your communication, and David mentioned it there a while ago. You will now be heard in Croke Park. It's not like when there's 80 or 90,000 people there. So your instructions and your communication to your lads in front of you is going to be really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And the couple of games he would have played against Wexford, Aidan Hart was always your designated sweeper, with Wexford obviously dropping the man back. Fair chance he'll take up the same role the next day, and if not, you could see the likes of your own clubman Sean Loftus going in there, who we all know is well adept at playing there. So again, great options in that regard, because it's going to be a very important position whoever does play, especially in this game.
Yeah, and even maybe even more important than the personnel is kind of what role you give the sweeper there. Is it okay to go and join up to midfield, or do you really want them holding back? And that depends very often it depends on the one-on-one threat that's inside man on man. If you have full confidence that, even go back in our time, if you had full confidence that the 2-on-2 maybe that you've left at the back, if you have full confidence in them, you'd say, you can squeeze on another little bit, and sometimes with puck outs, you would allow the spare man to go to the half-back line, and you kind of push one up to force their goalkeeper into going long, because you'd be very confident in your own half-back line. So these are the small little things that you're trying to gain little bits of ground in all the time. Whereas, I think going back, we played Clare twice. I think, using Clare as an example now, in 2016 we played Clare, and we made a conscious decision. Again, we knew we'd be left with a sweeper, but we made a conscious decision to really push up on their puck outs, to not let anything short. And that was because we were really confident that we'd deal with them when they had to go along to our half-back line. But if you remember the replay then in 2018 against Clare, where Jack Brown got all the short puck outs, they had got an awful lot of shorts out against us in Croke Park, and they'd got out the middle, out through our half-back line. And lads were working really hard, but they were just such good stickmen at offloading and whatnot that they kept getting out. And the way that game had gone was nearly every time there was a point one end from the puck out to be a point the other end. So, when it went to the replay, we let Jack Brown have all the puck outs, and he was allowed to come to the 45 before he struck the ball. But that was more because we wanted to keep shape at the back. So there's things like that. What will management have picked out? Will they have picked out maybe one of the Wexford cornerbacks, so you might let him have the sharp puck out all the time, because you are going to be outnumbered out there with their sweeper. So sometimes you'll push up, sometimes you'll just want to hold to keep shape at the back. So that's where, going into the unknown and not maybe having the opportunity to do video analysis on Wexford, that's a bit of a drawback, but they're in the same boat as us from that point of view.
Yeah. And it's about adaptation on the field too, because nothing stays the same in a game of hurling throughout. No system, or nothing stays the same in every play. Wexford won't have the same approach with every passing play. So, and as you say, that's where experience comes into it a lot too, and that we've lads both adept at playing against Wexford and in the likes of Aidan and Sean Loftus at playing that role as a sweeper too. So there will be times where you might be told as a sweeper that you have license to go, but then there's other times you have to make the conscious decision yourself, like, no, the lads might need me here now, so I'll sit, So
Yeah.
it's your hurling IQ comes into it an awful lot there too, doesn't it?
Big time, and it's not like it's not an individual, it's a collective IQ, being smart as a team, and knowing if you get a message from, let's say, from Aidan Hart behind you, that he's there, so you can push on to your man. You don't have to sit in the hole. Whereas if he's gone out in front of you, your centre back then has to sit a little bit more and be conscious of that. So, this is where I think our experience is massive, and I'm sure like the lads will have a ton of work done in terms of who's going to carry out what roles and what are the potential things that Wexford will throw at us. So look, I wouldn't be too worried from that point of view. As long as there's, as long as we handle pretty well whatever they throw at us, I'd be very, very confident that we'll have enough hurlers to get the job done up the pitch.
Yeah, and David, there's been a lot of talk, I suppose, as the club championship was developing about full back and whether we'd have license to get Dahi out of full back, and obviously we know Dahi's in a race against time to be fit, so I suppose we're not going to speculate either way whether he's going to be there or not. We'll have to see, and fingers crossed he will be there. But Fintan Burke was kind of one of the players of the championship when he went back to full back for St Thomas's. And he has been exposed to a bit of game time in the league, but more of as a wing back, I suppose. But is it too big a game to consider throwing him straight in at full back, where you could be faced with a Lee Chin or a Conor McDonald all afternoon, or Will O'Neill? I suppose the one blessing that O'Neill actually has is that he hasn't actually had Dahi work at his disposal at all yet, because he didn't have him during the league when he was involved with Corofin, obviously, and he had Garroge playing there at full back, so he knows he has that option there. And is that probably the safer and more likely option for them this weekend?
I'd say so. I think they'll probably go with McInerney. You'd imagine, like, even Franny and Mihal, like, you tried Garage there as well at full back when Dahi was away with Corofin as well. So he's, anytime I've seen him there, I've never really seen him too badly exposed or anything like that. People say he's slow on the turn and stuff like that. Perhaps, like, that might be a way, but I haven't really seen it too much. And I think this time of year as well, I think it'll actually suit him. Like Conor McDonald is probably not likely to burn him for pace either. Like, he's actually, if he was to, Conor McDonald is most likely to be full forward. So I think he'd actually suit Garage McInerney. But I suppose just in terms of the entire back line, I suppose if you were to throw Fintan in, you could see him at cornerback, and then maybe you could have, you could have Sean Loftus as well. And then if you were to say have Shane Cooney at 6, it's fairly experimental in its own right. Like, so at the other or opposite side of things, then you're probably more likely like to start someone like, say, Aidan Hart, someone there with great experience, and maybe even someone like Joseph Cooney, or to kind of counterbalance that it's just not a completely fresh kind of four lads. You probably want as much experience out there as you want youth or whatever. But I'd imagine, my personal opinion would be, I'd say they'd probably go with Garage at full back and just kind of see, even if, like, we don't know what Dahi's like. As he said, he's in a real race. It's probably unlikely he's going to make it, but you'd never know that his powers of recovery or something else, like, and he's one man could get back, it could be him, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. You described it as a blessing that Dahi was missing for Shane O'Neill. It's a strange kind of blessing, Patrick.
It's kind of blessing you could do without.
It's a blessing. If there's the blessings you're giving out in Bay, I don't think I want them.
Yeah. Well, about that is, and again, you do have to factor in that it's Wexford, so it's not going to be a traditional fullback role, in that you're likely to be, it's effectively 2 cornerbacks or 2 fullbacks. It's not going to be 3-on-3 in there. Now look at how many games are 3-on-3 anyway, but the Wexford game is so much about kind of withdrawing you or exposing you and then getting a run at you. Now, from what I've seen of Mac at fullback, I'd have no fears of Mac, because he's a very good tackler. He's a very good tackler. He's actually got good feet. Rare enough you would see him rounded, and this is where like, obviously I've great faith in Mac anyway, but this is where the collective comes in. That as a fullback, you have a sweeper. We're saying this, we're assuming this, but if it's more orthodox, I think we'd take that too. I'd be very happy with that. But if you have a sweeper as a defender, that allows you to really go and attack the first ball and just make sure you get something on it, because anything you get on it to slow down their possession, that's just getting your sweeper that little bit of time to get into position. And then there's the other stuff as well, that as a kind of a cornerback, that you can nearly play on the wrong side of your man because your sweeper will cover the other side. That kind of stuff, all that on a communication level, that comes into it as well. And that's why the experience of Mac, of Aidan Hart, of Pádraig Mannion, Joseph Cooney, these lads, I think that's massive in that backline.
Yeah, and I suppose one I will call this a blessing, and it's one that COVID offered us was the return of Joseph Cooney from Australia, because obviously it wasn't in the plans at the start of the year. Had moved over to Australia and was happy out over there, but but he made the return when COVID struck, and he was hurling away for Sarsfields all summer and was outstanding for them at centre back. So to be honest, like, if he'll start on Saturday, I'm sure, and going to see him, so he probably will have himself and Shane Cooney making up 2 of those spots in the half-back line. Where do you go with which of them goes at 5 or 6? It doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I think that they both be perfectly happy wherever they're stationed in that half-back line. And then a third man, maybe a Hart or a Pádraig Mannion or an Adrian Toohey. He's struggling a small bit as well with injury at the minute, so hopefully he'll be back in time as well. But the options are plentiful there, in fairness,
Yeah, Joseph is a huge bonus for us to have back. Like, because we've seen over the last few years how adaptable he is to various roles and whatnot. But he has huge presence. He has huge presence under the high ball. He's a gifted hurler, but he's also a very, very intelligent hurler. Like, he probably, outside of Galway, he probably never got enough credit for the work he did for us in 17. Now, he had an unbelievable Leinster final, but just the work he did for us every day, and like, you don't just pick up another fella who's going to do that job. It was just immeasurable and irreplaceable, really, I would have said, in terms of that role. And like, if you go back to Peter Duggan, the time he marked Peter Duggan in 2018, like, phenomenal job. And he's actually, to be honest with you, like, I'd say he'd probably say himself, he's probably more at home in the half-back line facing the ball. But like, that can present an opposition with a serious wall. If you have, if it's something like Pádraig Mannion, Shane Cooney, Joseph Cooney, like, that's on a par with anyone that any team has to offer,
Yeah, and was that something that you had in your heads prior to the move to mark Peter Duggan in that replay against Clare in 18? Was that, I suppose, you knew probably his capabilities back there, but at the same time you also knew, as you said, the job he did up at wing forward in all throughout 17 and at the start of 18 as well. So were you kind of reluctant to take him out of there because of that, in that what you might be losing up one end?
Yeah, but I suppose Peter Duggan had a serious performance in the game in Croke Park, and then we had lost Mac as well, so that probably made that decision easier, to be honest with you, lads. But going down there that day, absolutely full confidence in Joseph that he's an unassuming fella, but he gives everything. Like, as I said, you couldn't give him enough credit for what he's done over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to midfield, then again, I think options wise we're as well stocked as ever we've been, with the likes of Finton and Shane Cooney coming in this year. Lads that they're not far off ready made to slot into that team, which is, it's a brilliant options to have. But David Burke kind of that foot injury that he's rumoured to have had prior to the county final, provided that's healed up, which we'd expect it should be, he's nailed on for one spot in midfield anyhow. And joining him, I don't know, there's plenty of options there, the likes of the Johnny Cones or either of the Manions, potentially. You know, we've seen both of them in action that sector of the field. We know the damage Cahill can do from there anyhow, both from an intercounty jersey and in a Haskell jersey. But David Burke, one option there. And do you look for a kind of an attacking option to go alongside him, Franny, maybe, and have Davy sitting back and playing the role we know he plays so well, and then another fella who has the license to push on and take scores, like something like Cahill Mannion would offer you?
It really depends on what the management, what they want to do. Like, are they going to be looking to, half forwards to come deep, which would maybe allow you to have one of your midfielders drifting into space, maybe in behind their half back line and so on. So that depends really. Like Davy, in fairness to Davy is so adaptable. Davy can do either. Davy can do an attacking role and has a really good sense of when to pop up and where to pop up at various stages in the game, and really good over the years at picking off those scores kind of in behind their half back line, just timing his run and so on. But equally excellent on the communication side and can sit in there and give your half, your centre back great comfort and great cover. And just thinking, like, if it is to be Shane Cooney at centre back, I think he'd be probably that bit more comfortable with Davy operating kind of just in front of him there. Because for Shane, like, his form excellent, but it's yourself, it's still a big game when you're being asked to wear the 6 for the first time in a big championship game like that. So I think early doors, if I was in Shane's shoes, I'd maybe like to have Davy there beside me for the first few minutes and ease my way into the game, because it can be an unforgiving environment, and you'll take every little bit of advantage you can get.
That's for sure. And David, one move I suppose that was key to St Thomas's this year was Conor Cooney out in the half forward and operating as an out and out kind of centre forward. And we saw I suppose the adaptability he has as a player too, especially in the final. I thought Franny, he was excellent going back the field in the second half, picking up an awful lot of ball. But he showed that he has those two different aspects to his game, and obviously a brilliant scorer and a brilliant sticksman, as we know. And definitely, I think that's a position, or certainly a line, the half forward, and it's where I'd like to see him hopefully for Galway this weekend. And the form he's bringing into the weekend is exceptional, which is what we want to see, because him in 2017 form, he's an absolute nightmare to deal with as a Wexford defender anyhow. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think he's had a great club championship, number one. I think his confidence is really sky high, and that's what you want, particularly of your forwards going in. Like, sometimes you might have a back who has struggled a little bit, but can get themselves going for championship, or can get their target if they know who they're going to mark, and really get themselves up for it. But for your forwards, what you want is lads that are just playing with huge confidence, and Conor's going to bring huge confidence to the game. So I'd imagine, look, we haven't mentioned Joe Canning yet, and over the last few years you think we had no one else, but I'd imagine it'll be Conor will be out there. I'd imagine Joe will be there in the half forward line, and I'd imagine Cahill Mannion at various stages, whether that's the three you actually start with. I'd imagine it could be thereabouts, but will one of them drop to midfield? I'm not sure, but that's, again, we've talked about the other lines. I think that's a serious half forward line, and you would just hope, like, the thing about Wexford, and I said it earlier, the reason they play the sweeper, or one of the reasons they play the sweeper, is that it allows all those halfbacks to really go man to man on those. But again, no matter what way it comes to Conor, to Joe, or to Cahill Mannion, I'd have great confidence in them. And I think defensively, which you have to be, I think those three lads will be well tuned into what Wexford will bring in terms of trying to get at you, and maybe trying to get our half forwards defending. But I think we're well tuned into that. I'd have full confidence in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, like, it's hard to believe it. And Joe said himself in an interview a couple of weeks ago, you could say it's nearly 2 years since he's played intercounty hurling, which is kind of it is hard enough to believe, because even going in last year, obviously he didn't have him at all for the championship last year, bar the couple of minutes against Dublin, Franny. But the national perspective was that right off Galway because Joe wasn't there. But I don't think within the county, I don't think that perception was ever there, because we know ourselves the quality of player, and we're only going through it here now. But obviously having him back, it's obviously going to be a huge bonus. And again, as David mentioned earlier on, that element of going into it rested, it's going to be worth a lot to him too. And at the same time, the fact that he hasn't played really in whatever he mentioned nearly 2 years, he's going to be mad hungry for road too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's hard to believe. I think he came on I don't know, there was nearly 50 minutes gone. There was definitely 45 minutes gone when he came on against Dublin last year. So he got whatever 20 minutes there, and then you have to go back to, it's hard to believe now, you have to go back to the 2018 All-Ireland. So he's effectively played 20 minutes of hurling in 2 years. But that, of all lads now, that wouldn't bother me in relation to Joe Kenning, because he's so at home in Croke Park. And I think no more than any other time, like at the end of the day, and we can talk about all the lines, but for me, if we can get Joe Kenning on the ball enough times, if we can get Cathal Mannion on the ball, and then in the inside line, obviously, if we can get Conor Whelan on the ball enough, I think those three alone, like what other team have that kind of level? If you take, okay, Limerick have a serious team, Tip have serious hurlers, but when we get flowing and we get those lads really involved a lot, we're absolutely a match for anyone. And this is why, like, we are definitely the forgotten team. But I'd be very hopeful that we won't be the forgotten team come next weekend, and we live an awful lot to look forward to.
Yeah, it's a good position to be going in many respects, David. And we're looking finally at the inside line, and we know Conor Whelan's gonna position there. We'd imagine, and we saw plenty of him at full forward in the league. And in fairness, he was a lad. He was on fire in the league, and brought that into the club championship too with Kinvara. Was excellent for them throughout. So a lad who's is still only 24, going on 24 in 3 or 4 days actually, and actually the 31st, that's his birthday as far as I know. So that'll be a nice birthday present Saturday evening, please God. But look, a lad who Wexford are certainly going to have to do plenty of thinking about this week and in the last couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Sure, he's an absolutely phenomenal player. Like, what I mean, there's just, I suppose, even if you're looking at like Galway, you've listed off the other forwards there like Cathal and Conor and a few more like that. But you'd nearly say Whelan in terms of importance is probably just behind Joe now present, like, and what he brings to that Galway team. Just since he's broken out of the scene, like he's developed physically, and his work rate is unbelievable. Like, you see, you're like Liam Ryan coming down on passing pressure. But just say hypothetically, Liam Ryan is on Whelan and he's trying to pick up a ball, and you're not going to get out with it easy anyway. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Like, he'll hit you with everything he's got, we'll say. But just like it's was been spoken of so much. It's such a physical team as well. Like, we talk about Limerick and how physical they are. Like, but Galway are, it's a huge team with just the names we've listed off, and they've even developed a lot over the last few years as well. Just in terms of Whelan now, he's an absolute tank of an individual. Like, but I suppose most likely alongside him will probably be Kincannon, because he seems to have seen the most game time, during the league. But so that kind of leaves one spot then for probably, any kind of combination between Jason Flynn, Niall Burke, maybe even Evan Ireland. It's hard to know what kind of. It depends what they're kind of after, really. As Franny has said before, we just don't know. It's so hard to tell. But like, I suppose in the tech is probably the easiest, but maybe 5 out of 6 to pick, because you're almost guaranteed to see like Cathal, Joe, Conor Cooney, Conor Whelan, and Brian Kincannon, and it's probably back the field where kind of we'll be more curious as to see what Shane O'Neill and the boys kind of come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I suppose really in terms of the forwards, it does depend on form and whatnot. Like, so we've mentioned a good few lads there who had really good club championships. Jam Mannion had an excellent club championship. Jamie Ryan, Kevin Cooney, Jason Flynn has the experience, and Jason, like, get Jason on form in Croke Park. Like, it could be a great opportunity for him. So that it will be very much dependent on who's showing what in training. And I know they've played a couple of challenge matches, even though I haven't heard an awful lot about how they've gone. But it will depend on form there. But like there may be a case, and you said at the start, David, maybe just it's a place. Maybe you could throw in somebody, and you never know. Throw in something into the mix, and you know, Ryan Cody has often done it in the past, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you know, so be it. But it could be a great opportunity from that point of view.
Yeah. I suppose just in terms of throwing someone in, I suppose we didn't mention even there your own clubman Sean Linehan, who was in outstanding form all campaign, like, and it's, you know, top of the left there. That seems to be the spot that's available, and you know he would be, you know, he couldn't be far away if you were going on club form alone, because Jesus, he had an incredible campaign for you, Franny.
Yeah, he had, yeah, and I suppose the only thing, you know, I didn't mention him there, but the only thing is that his earlier games this year with Galway were much further out the field. They were out more midfield. So again, it depends on, since he went back in training, you know, where has he been playing in training? Has he been playing him inside or out the pitch? So, but there's, like, we went through the squad there. Like there's plenty of options, and it's a case of, you know, you're just hoping that whatever combination, that if we're solid at the back and we get the ball, as I said earlier, if we get the ball into our key players' hands, the likes of Joe and the likes of Cathal Mannion in that crucial area in the middle third as we come out of defence and we're looking for lads, if we can get those lads on the ball, that's when things happen. Like, there's no question about that. And provided we can do that, as I said earlier, you know, I wouldn't be overly concerned about what team is picked, because it's always going to be down to the collective.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know as well, you know, whatever team is picked, that we're going to have the 4, 5, 6 subs that can come in and make an impact in the last 20 minutes. When in a game like this, you know, when Wexford are going to be, I suppose, asking a lot of the Galway players in terms of running and tracking and that sort of thing, those lads coming in, they're going to be of huge importance. But looking at the Wexford team, again, no more than the Galway team, you wouldn't be expecting too many curveballs, really. Like the team they selected last year in their All-Ireland semi-final against Tip was Mark Franny in goal, Damien Reck, Liam Ryan and Dunham in the full-back line, Paddy Foley, Matthew O'Hanlon, Sean Murphy in the half-back line, Kevin Foley, Jim O'Keefe midfield, half-forward line of Liam McGovern, Conor McDonald and Jack O'Connor, and the full-forward line Paul Morris, Lee Chin and Rory O'Connor, with the likes of Aidan Nolan and Joe O'Connor coming in. They're lads that could potentially slot in there. But, you know, it's going to be two teams going up against each other that have plenty of knowledge and experience of going up against one another, you know. So, and the reality is, like, in terms of championship meetings, Galway have had the upper hand since 17 is kind of the first one, really, you know, in recent memory, that where teams will be, you know, you could rate them or liken them to what's going out next weekend, you know. So we have I suppose that upper hand on them in many respects. But, you know, we touched on it earlier on, the different threats that Wexford pose, and it's something that you can't, you know, you would, as you say, like to have video analysis done with them. You would have liked to have seen them playing a championship game already or in recent weeks, you know. But, you know, it's something you're certainly going to have prepared for going into the game, and then a case of adapting to certain things as they take shape on the field. Yeah,
and you know, I'm sure, as I said earlier, I'm sure Davy will have his plans, but the other side of that is he doesn't know what our team is going to be either. So he doesn't know in terms of his matchups, and like, he is huge on matchups in terms of who picks up each of our forwards. And with the sweeper, like, I know, because I think he kind of admitted it sometime afterwards to Micheál that, you know, he did his matchups for the 2017 Leinster final, but he kind of ran out of man markers, to be honest with you. Like, he had, I can't remember who it was. Was it Donoghue or Reck on Conor Whelan? Now, some might say he did a good job on Conor Whelan. I would say, from my point of view, that he spent half the day assaulting him. But that's, you know, there was a lot of manhandling going on. So, you know, so his job was to keep Whelan out of the game. But who benefited from that? Conor Cooney benefited hugely from that, in that he got a little bit more space, and then also Joseph Cooney benefited from that. So in terms of matchups, he kind of ran out of lads who could really, you know, get their focus on a fella and take him out of the game. Now they're definitely a bit better now. I think they're better now with the current sweeper, and I think they're more adaptable. But you could now be looking at a scenario where now Liam Ryan is going to be very much occupied with Conor Whelan, would say. And I think that's a huge task for Liam Ryan and Conor Whelan's current level of form. Liam Ryan himself coming back from injury, we don't know much about how much he has done. I'm sure he's a fair bit done at this stage now because it's a long time ago since he had his injury. But Conor Whelan is a different ball game now. He's a few years older. He's much stronger. Certainly more inclined now to really drop the shoulder and go at you. So, I think that's a huge challenge for Wexford. But as I said, he's Davy's game plan. It's always going to be about making it about other stuff rather than just a game of hurling. He wants to get down to a battle. He wants to do his level best to contain you for 50, 55 minutes and then have a cut at you. That tends to be the philosophy over the last couple of years with him. And if he gets the game played on his terms, then we'll definitely be in a battle. But if we can hit the ground running, as I said to you earlier, I have huge confidence in our hurling ability.
Yeah, one thing that struck me back in 2017 when you played at Wexford that day was I suppose you think often when you're coming up against a sweeper, it's all about being precise with your deliveries and playing to the outside shoulder of a forward, or keeping it away from the sweeper in many respects. But we touched on it earlier, the use of the high ball that you use both in 17 and 18, kind of most memorably for me anyhow. There was kind of, Conor Cooney, as we know, went to town that day, that first day in 17 in Croke Park, and it was often a case where there was a high ball coming in top of him and he was kind of outnumbered maybe 3-2 or 4-3 in that, but he was able to get his hurl up and knock it out somewhere that he was reacting first to it and he was first onto it then, and by doing that you were taking the sweeper totally out of the game. Was that something that you were kind of consciously looking to do going into the game? Or obviously you would have had plenty of thoughts about how you were going to deal with them that time.
Yeah, we in 17 we actually went very direct, and I would argue that when we look back at it afterwards, if I can recall correctly now, that a lot of the ball we didn't even go as deep as we would have liked, in that it was kind of landing on the 21, and we wanted it a little bit deeper. But we did get huge, Conor got huge success out of that. But we were, I'm not sure, in 18, because there was a strong breeze down there, we went very direct in the first half as well, and that definitely caused them a lot of problems. But so we just felt that one-on-one they weren't that comfortable, physically, what our forwards were like. Physically our lads were well able to look after themselves, so we could afford to be that bit direct, whereas they were so much about withdrawing forwards and clogging the middle third that it does make it hard to play through that area a lot of the time. So you do need to be able to mix it up, and having that ability to go long was great to have in the armour, because when you could do that, it maybe forced them back another little bit in terms of their half-back line, and then that allowed us to play through the lines a little bit more as the game goes on. So it's that ability, and having the players who can mix it up and vary it at different stages in the game, that is crucial too.
It's just incredible, Franny, over since he joined in 2016. I suppose even in 3 years the game has changed so much. I'm surprised just hearing you talk there, and just the minute details, we'll say, you go in, and the tactical nuances of the game. How do you try and tick every box? How do you have enough hours in the day between working a job down on top of it, or it's a phenomenal commitment now. Inter-county management and coaching and everything. It's just.
It's
I
huge.
don't understand how he would have even had the time to go through everything, between video analysis, training, it must have been, 24/7, 360, 5 days a year.
Yeah, it's even between 16 and 19, lads, it had just changed so much in terms of the time commitment, from an analysis point of view, because if you didn't do it, the opposition were doing it on you, and if you didn't have every little, and even at that, that's no guarantee of success, as we found out. So 17, definitely from 16 to 17, there was a massive step up in terms of commitment. But I would say year on year, that kind of went through the roof. The amount of time that was going into it, and sometimes you got the rewards for it, and sometimes you didn't. There's an element of, 2019, obviously we were very disappointed in 2019, and yet you look back at it now maybe with a different perspective, where we went out, we went down and beat Kilkenny in Kilkenny, having had a training camp the week before that had gone extremely well, and we were absolutely buzzing, and went down, got the job done against Kilkenny, which in itself was a fantastic achievement for the lads, and then had the, whatever it was, 6-day turnaround, and we're a bit flat against Dublin. But then you look back and say, a few key players. We lost Cooney to injury, didn't have Joe to injury, and lost Whelan. And no more than clear the last day you take those lads out of any team, and understandable that you would struggle a bit. But it was just the whole thing last year, the way the results went, it was just incredible, really. And sometimes you just have to take these on the chin. And I suppose from our lads' point of view, it means they've had kind of a good rest. They should be pretty fresh. So that's why I'd have great hope and great confidence in this year. But to come back to your point, David, it's just gone. It's the whole analysis side in particular has just gone nuts. And look yourself that there'll always be, people will say, well, do you need that level of analysis? Well, I can tell you, when the opposition have it done on you, and you're not sure what they're going to throw at you, it's the sideline's a tough place to be if things don't go your way. At least if you have prepared for it, and if on the day you're not good enough, or you look back, and I suppose I'd always be critical of myself first and foremost, and say, geez, we could have done this or we could have done that, and then maybe afterwards you look and say, you look at the players and look at the other stuff. So in your own critical eye, in terms of analysing your own performance, that's where I would always look first and say, could we have done more? But I can safely say last year, and results and whatnot didn't go our way, but definitely in terms of preparation, we definitely couldn't have done more. Some might argue about maybe the quality of what we had done, but in terms of the effort that had gone in, it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose looking ahead finally to next weekend, we think back to 18, and I suppose the long road that there was in getting to that All-Ireland final, the replays with Kilkenny and Clare, this year as well, the way everything is going, it's so compact, and you're going to be playing, please God, all going to well. You'll be playing a nice few games and then getting into an All-Ireland final, please God. But the less games you can play to get there, probably the better this year as well, no more than last year and the year before.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely. I mean, 18, it was an unbelievable year. It would have been an absolutely incredible year had the All-Ireland gone our way. But that was a huge pity and a huge disappointment. But it was, the road was incredible. In fairness, the support built over 2017 and whatnot, and homecoming and all that stuff was great. But actually, the support in 2018 was absolutely phenomenal, and the journey we were on, and we had good days and bad days. There was days that we thought we had the game won, and people might be critical of Galway for letting teams back into it, but Clare played phenomenal stuff that year. Kilkenny, typical Kilkenny, you saw what Kilkenny did to Limerick this year, and Limerick didn't get a second opportunity. Looking back on it, was it 9 games? It was phenomenal. It definitely, when it was over, lads, I know I was absolutely drained. I was empty. So you can imagine what it was like from a player's point of view. And the whole thing is so intense, and that goes back to my point about the time you're putting in and all that. It is just so intense. Particularly when you have a 5 or 6 day turnaround or whatever it is to a replay, and replays just take so much out of you, and then there's so little recovery time to get ready for your next game. I remember coming home from the Clare replay, and you had 2 weeks for an All-Ireland, and we were trying to plan stuff on the way home in the bus, probably stuff that, being honest, probably stuff that as management maybe you shouldn't be having to plan or whatever, but that was the reality of it, that you had to get stuff organised and whatnot. And yet all of the analysis and all of the planning for Limerick had to be done as well. And as I'm saying, nowadays that's such a huge undertaking, and you just wonder from a management point of view, even at that level, if you had had another week maybe to really get into Limerick and see what they were about a little bit more. Whereas I suppose a lot of your time, a lot of your thought process is taken up in terms of getting lads out back on the pitch and getting lads right again, having had 8 games under their belt, and could they be fresh enough for a 9th and whatnot, and all the time then there was as I said, the journey was massive, but there was huge enjoyment out of those days, but it just ultimately, I suppose, you look back on it now with a bit of disappointment because we came up short in the end.
But you came up short, Franny, we'll say, but like you were oh so close. And, I think you spoke afterwards and you were saying we didn't really hurl at all that day, but like inches, like a matter of inches. So this is why, for me, it becomes so strange that Galway have been written off so much, because it's practically still the same cohort of players there that are still involved this year. They've had a bit of a break now, we'll say, over the last 12 months from inter-county, the hustle and bustle. They've had a bit of time to recharge the batteries and, focus the mind again. And, that's why I just don't get that, why they've been written off so bad. Now we could end up with an egg on our face, maybe come Saturday evening, should I say. So you just don't know. But I think it's hard not to have faith in this group of players, considering the consistency you showed over 2017 and in 2018. The people are writing them off already, and that Limerick are suddenly, this unstoppable force, will say. Now they have probably improved a bit, Limerick, but since then, and Galway probably need to come up a level themselves. But Galway couldn't be a million miles away.
No, I agree with you totally, and I mean, I'm definitely not going to disagree from the players' point of view. Like, I have huge belief in those players, and I kind of, I've been lucky enough. I know what their collective mentality is like, and when they're in flow and when things are happening for them, like they are top class hurlers, and like, would they relish a chance again? Like, Saturday is a huge game. It's a huge game. While I think we'll win it, and I think it could be a massive stepping stone for us. It's the game that can really put us back in the picture in the public eye. But it will be a challenge. There's no doubt it'll be a challenge, because you have to get this game played on your terms. That's the key for me. But yeah, I would still be 100% confident in these players. And as you said, and I recall saying it after the 2018 All-Ireland, we really only got going. Now there was a stage in the first half where we were beginning to flow, and I think it might have been around the time that Limerick got their second goal, and it kind of took the stuffing out of us a little bit. And then, the third goal was a bit of a killer, where we were chasing the game a little bit, and yet in the last 10 minutes, like, they did some phenomenal stuff to almost claw it back. But they were just like, they had probably hit top form early that year, and then for me it was probably the last few minutes of the Leinster final actually were the crucial ones. I think we had a 3-point lead going into injury time, and Kilkenny managed to pull us back, and that, like, fairness to Kilkenny, that would be typical Kilkenny, where they just keep going and going and going to the end, and they pulled us back, and it meant we had to take a replay in Thurles, and that was, huge day. Like, if you remember, lads, it was absolutely scorching, and that took a bit out of our lads. And then semi-final against Clare, really hit the ground running, and then Clare made a few changes to their credit. Good team, they got their game going, and once they got their passing game going, like, and this is where we have a huge, big physical team. But when Clare want to play around you and they're buzzing around the place, that made it difficult for our lads, and they had to adapt, and we had to change the game plan for the next day. So just mentally, all of these things, like, they definitely, as I said to you earlier, they took their toll on me and took their toll on the management team for sure. But guaranteed they took a bit of a toll on the players as well over that period of time. Now, like, I wouldn't dare discredit Limerick in any way, because I just thought Limerick were phenomenal on the day. But it was nearly the perfect storm in terms of their preparation versus ours, and that's fine. Some days, that it'll go like that, but it was still up to Limerick to bring it on the day, and they absolutely did that. So deserve enormous credit, and I think they have. Like, to be fair to them, Limerick have gone from strength to strength since. But it's just that Kilkenny game last year has to be, gnawing away at them a little bit, in that, when it comes to the crunch this year, will we have the answers? Like, we know with our lads that if they can get over this one the weekend, absolutely, they're as good as anyone in my book, and there's no reason why they can't go on and become serious contenders. But I would say, and you said it earlier, the front door is the way to go. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before
no, just
go on.
Go on. Sorry, go on. No, work away.
No, I was just saying we're not going to be going around for predictions here, because it's we know the answers. In fairness, we're confident enough people that way, and it's a case of, I suppose, asking more so, how do you get the job done rather than will be, because we obviously we do believe we will beat Wexford, but how do you go about doing it?
Well, I think I answered that earlier. I think it's getting our key playmakers on the ball. Not so much like Conor Cooney is a very good finisher and so on, and Conor Whelan's a really good finisher. But the keys for me are around the middle third, and I know that's a source of much debate where you play Joe Canning. Like, for me, it was always Joe Canning is our best player. Get him on the ball as much as you can. So, and I know that was a debate. Like, do you put Joe Canning back in full forward, or I don't think Joe Canning wants to go back in full forward. Joe Canning wants to be on the ball as much as possible. And like, if I'm on the sideline, I want Joe Canning on the ball as much as possible. And the keys to the game is getting Cathal Mannion, getting Joe Cooney or Joe Canning on the ball as much as possible. I'd be very happy with our backs, that we can, as long as we've good communication and good shape, that we can handle their forwards one-on-one and collectively. And then in terms of how we want to play up the pitch, for me, it's getting those key players. I think there's a bit of a spark in lads like Brian Concannon, because he can just produce a pass out of nowhere that can set up a goal for you. Like, that's what he brings to it. And he will be, you can be sure he'll be very, very tightly marked, and will find it maybe hard at times to get that breathing space, but has that capacity. And then Whelan inside. Like, I think we do have the threats all over. As long as we can, work it to those really, really, it's the lads that have that 1% more than everyone else. And like, in terms of our half forwards, for me, that's the likes of Cathal Mannion and Joe Canning.
Yeah. Have you any final ones to throw at Franny before we finish up, David?
Just it's probably been done to death, and we probably will. But how big a factor, Franny, do you think something like the water breaks will be? Because we didn't actually touch on them. Like, say, someone as astute as Davy, and his ability to get a message across, and how big a factor do you think that's going to be? At the weekend.
Sure. I mean, we saw in the club games that it can have a huge impact on the game. It's obviously, you don't want that break to come when you're in flow and whatnot, but I think it could actually be very valuable to our lads, because I think we're the ones that are comfortable that, if it's a relatively orthodox game, that we can play it, we can go toe to toe with anyone. It's normally in the game, if Davy Fitz was to throw something different at us, we mightn't get a chance to properly address that until half time in normal circumstances. Now, he really only has maybe maximum 20 minutes to surprise us, and we can regroup and we can get the key messages in again. So, I don't know how big a factor it'll be for either team. Of course, if we hit the ground running and we get a great start, you want it to keep going. But I just think, somebody who might rely a little bit more on the element of surprise, that it maybe closes the window a little bit there in terms of the damage that could be done by it,
That's perfect. That's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, look, I think we'll wrap it up there. We're 4 or 5 days away from it, and I don't know. I was thinking to myself there the other day, when was the last time I've seen Galway playing under floodlights? And to be honest, I can't actually remember it at senior level. You've seen it at under 21, all right, but it's going to be a strange occasion all around. But I think there's no shortage of excitement around the county. I think we're all just mad to see a game of hurling, especially with our own lads involved. So we're all really looking forward to it here, and we'll be back next week to hopefully reflect back on a glorious triumph. But we'll see how it goes. But thanks a million, Franny, for joining us. Really enjoyed that chat. Brilliant.
No bother,
brilliant
lads.
insight.
No bother.
So we'll be back in the future, and please God, the winter will be long for the hurlers, but short in other ways. But that's all we have for this week. So I hope you all enjoy the game Saturday, and all really looking forward to it, as I say. So chat to you again next week.